information overload, and knowledge management. I'm Tonya Hall, and joining me is Louie Tetu, Chairman and CEO of Coveo. Welcome, Louie.
Tonya, thank you for having me.
Help us understand, what does Coveo do?
Coveo is a leader in applied AI. We have global customers that use our AI to personalize digital experiences across their websites, their e-commerce sites, as well as all the various channels of customer service, self-service, contact centers, as well as their workplace for employee self-service. So everything that deals with a digital experience, and therefore using AI to personalize that experience in ways that are essentially the ways that we've been accustomed to by digital leaders across the world is what we help these companies do.
We're moving into an era where experience and service matter internally just as much as they do externally. So, how have you seen the employee experience change over this last year?
The employee experience has changed dramatically from an expectation standpoint. To answer, the best answer to that question is to start by the employee point of view. What's happening right now is, especially there's a new generation coming into the workforce that is coming into the workforce expecting the same kind of experience that they get as consumers. We call that the consumerization of the workplace. This has been further exacerbated with COVID, in fact, because suddenly you have a bunch of people who are on their own and need to do more on their own. So that puts a lot of pressure on the part of companies and their ability to deliver experiences, and especially content and knowledge experiences that matter to people, that truly helps them do more on their own. And we've truly moved. The problem of access to information has been there for more than a decade, obviously, and probably even 2 decades. We refer to it as knowledge management. What's really new here is that companies and the smarter companies, I would say, are looking at it from a proficiency perspective rather than an efficiency perspective, which is this whole idea that it's not only about the efficiency to get to information and make sure that employees have access to what they need, but the ability to use technology to make people more proficient, which means, elevate their level of knowledge so that they can exercise judgment on more complex situations on their own. In practical terms, what that means, Tonya, is if you have 1,000 employees, how would you think about having each and every one of those 1,000 employees do 5% more on their own, handle 5% more complexity on their own, more complex situations on their own, and so on? And that's the key role that AI can play in the workplace. And we do that all day, every day for some of the major corporations in the world.
Define corporate information clutter and discuss how it has become an issue right now during the pandemic pivot to remote work.
Well, if you think about, where corporate information resides, you go back 20 years ago, everyone thought that, the corporate intranet would sort of house all the information that you would just put in SharePoint. And of course, it was so great. Everybody would put everything into it. And of course, everybody would retrieve everything they need from it. We understand that's not exactly what happened. What happened was a proliferation of systems and data silos. A lot of the information that corporations now rely on and employees rely on to run the business is sometimes not even within the firewall or within the confines of the company. It's in social networks. It's everywhere. So information is everywhere. It's very, very siloed and et cetera. So, the key here is much like Google does in the public domain. If you're in a company, how do you bring that together? How do you rank it against, one source against the other? And how do you make it relevant for people? So that, for instance, you may be asking a question, Tonya may be asking a question, I'm asking a question, but the answer for Louie might be different than the answer for Tonya, because you have a context, I have a context, which is everything that could be found in the data. And so the ability to cut through the clutter, unify it, and then make it relevant for people has become a key capability in the workplace.
How can artificial intelligence help ensure employees have access to the information they need to do their jobs well?
Well, information intelligence and more specifically machine learning allows you essentially to learn from every piece of data and every interaction at scale. And of course, if you combine that with search technology that can find patterns in the data, suddenly I can answer to Tonya by using data. I can answer to Tonya in ways that are very personal, but through AI, I can find people like Tonya or people like Louie. And if I can find people like Louie and then observe their behavior and observe what kind of content they consume and et cetera, I can probably anticipate or recommend and suggest the kind of content that Tonya and Louie might need. And that becomes extremely powerful in the context of a workplace where suddenly you're not only cutting through the clutter, as we discussed before, and unifying information, but you can actually make it relevant at a very, very individual level. And we go back to this concept of people doing more on their own. If I can understand, the context you're in, the kind of work you do, the tasks, the kind of things that interest you, and et cetera, I can surface that content in more proactive ways and empower you with better knowledge so that again you can exercise more judgment in facing situations. And that's a true revolution in the workplace where the intranet suddenly becomes intelligent, employee self-service becomes intelligence, and the whole employee experience becomes as intelligent as the kind of experiences we have as consumers.
So, what advice can you offer to companies dealing with dispersed knowledge silos to consolidate and navigate their way through them?
Well, the advice I would have, first of all, is don't underestimate the expectation of your employees, and don't underestimate the benefit of making your employees, more empowered with information from everywhere in the organization, and bring that information at their fingertips. Information is an amazing asset, but like any assets, you won't get a return from it unless you use it. And your employees are the ones using the information. So you have to unlock and unleash the information by unifying it. And then AI has the ability to deliver information in very personal ways. It used to be that you needed armies of knowledge managers and people who did taxonomy and information cleansing and all of that. You no longer need to do that. All you need to do is, much like Google did in the public domain, all you need to do is in fact index that information, leave it where it resides. You can cut across 30, 40, 50 systems, from the database underneath SAP to your CRM to knowledge bases files, and even social content, and pull that together, and again, by using AI and understanding the crowd behavior, deliver that to individual employees in ways that are very personal. And the power of that in terms of making the workforce more proficient shouldn't be understated. This is extremely powerful.
Louie Tetu, Chairman and CEO of Coveo. If somebody wants to connect with you, Louie, maybe they want to find out more about your work, how can they do that?
Well, if they want to connect with me personally, I'm Louie at Coveo.com. So that's fairly easy, and I tend to respond to most of my mails when I can. Coveo.com is a good way to look at all the customers and some of the big brands using Coveo. It's pretty much all over the internet. Not only you can see the Coveo use cases and the use cases where we've applied AI across the workplace, service, and commerce, but also you can actually experience, because those are, publicly available digital experiences. You can actually get to experience those as well.
Thanks again, Louie.
Tonya, was a pleasure.
Of course. And you can find more of my interviews right here on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube, or at tonyahall.net. Thanks for watching.